What is happening, everybody? My name is Julius, and I am here once again with Yanni, my special guest, to talk about Spider-Man. It is the journey home. Here we are continuing it. We are very close at this point to, I was about to say Star Wars. Spider-Man, No Way Home, man. Yanni, how are you doing again?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about Far From Home, especially because in the last discussion we kind of like dipped our toes into it a little bit. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about it in full.
Yeah, me too, man. We're closing it out properly, and we are going to talk about Far From Home because Far From Home is a very unique Spider-Man film amongst not only Tom Holland's kind of career as the character, but just in the Spider-Man filmography. I think it's a very unique one, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it. But before we even talk about the movie itself, we have to remind ourselves that this is a part of something bigger. It is a part of the overarching story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The movie right before this was one of the biggest films of all time, Avengers Endgame, the second part of the Infinity War. And some big stuff happens in that film that sets up this movie. And I'm going to spoil the biggest thing, okay? All right? All
I'm
right?
uh,
Okay, here we go. Tony Stark is dead. He is gone. His the mentor of Spider-Man is done. So, Yanni, what are your brief thoughts on the journey of Iron Man and why is he such a staple in pop culture now?
I think it's interesting because Tony Stark in the movies is so different in the comics, both in how I think fans perceive him and also just a little bit in characterization. Because I mean, Iron Man 1 was the one that started this whole cinematic universe.
Hmm.
So people are obviously going to be attached to that character because it's the character we've been with the entire time.
Yeah.
And he's such an important one. He's the one who buys everyone's toys. He's the always the biggest cameo.
Yeah.
He's such an interesting character, and it's funny because in many ways he's like a very arrogant person. He's like not a very likable one. He in
Hmm.
his early years he was like a almost a war profiteer.
Yeah.
He and even afterwards, like he views himself like so highly and like above everyone else, but there's also that very heroic side of him as well. And even in his heroic side, he's sometimes like wrong about things, like even like whether it be with the way he handled Peter Parker or his decisions in like Civil War, depending on which side you side with. He's not always the most likable character, yet there's just something about him, like his charisma, I think really carries him. And I
Yeah.
think that Downey, I think, is part of that. Just the way that he
Yeah.
performs the character, you love watching him.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think considering how conflicted and dynamic of a character he is, I think what grabs people when it comes to Iron Man is the fact that he doesn't always do right, but he's always trying to. He always thinks what he's doing is not only correct, but it is morally just, uh, even though he's causing a lot of problems for the world.
Yeah.
Like he's Ultron, Mysterio, Vulture now. Like he is kind of the cause for a lot of problems, but his heart's always been in the right place when making these mistakes. And it is very conflicting because, on the one hand, you want to see him. He earned that moment with I Am
Oh
Iron Man.
man.
He earned that because of all the mistakes he had made, but he still made those mistakes, which is why he is such a conflicting character. And I think it's part of why people feel so many different ways about his relationship with Spider Man, who, for all intents and purposes, for comic book fans, is has always been the heart of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting that like, especially because like the comic Tony and Peter are very different than the movie Tony and Peter, which I
Yes.
know that's a lot with like the diehard fans always complain about because
Hmm.
there's even that great line when Andrew Garfield said in an interview like Peter Parker and Iron Man would never get along. But versus like it's a very ironic because in the MCU, the
Yeah.
father son mentality. But I think it's just also just very different interpretations because, and I think Iron Man in the MCU is definitely more likable than in the comics. He's they're both more arrogant, but I think in the MCU he is more likable because he does really try a lot, and everything he does isn't necessarily even for his own benefit, but it's because everything that happened to him, be like Avengers 1 and Iron Man 1, that has like shaped who he is as a character and as a person.
Hmm.
And I love that, like, even in Endgame, he always goes back to that scene in Age of Ultron where he's like, I saw us lose. It happened. I knew it was happening. I couldn't stop it, because everything he does after that vision is to make sure that everyone else survives. And when he can't, like, it wrecks him.
Yeah, that's something that is very unique about the character because he is driven by guilt throughout the whole story of the
Mm.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's what causes a lot of the mistakes he makes. You know, him fighting with Captain America, him recruiting Spider-Man in the first place. You
Yeah.
know, one thing I really actually like about his inclusion with Spider-Man, his relationship, is how he realizes he is a lot of the times in the wrong. You know, especially at the end of Homecoming, he realizes that he shouldn't have been such a jerk
Yeah,
to
right,
Peter. You know, he's like, I was wrong about you, um, and here's a suit. And then Peter pulls the most gangster shit. He says,
yeah.
"I don't need the suit. I'm
Yeah.
going home, dude. I'm going to Queens, man." So I think a lot of people love it because of that. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And his last moment is just fully self-sacrifice, and
Yeah.
for the betterment of everyone else, and definitely not towards himself, because he has the most during the blip time. I think it's the snap time, and the
Um,
blip is when it
the
comes back.
snap is yeah. The blip
Yeah, so
is
you call it during the, I don't remember what time.
post snap, I guess.
Yeah, post snap. Yeah.
Hmm.
So during that time, like, that's when he has the most, because he has Pepper, he has his daughter.
It's got a
I think, is
farm.
most at peace. He's not even, yeah, he's not even like fighting as Iron Man. He's
Mhm.
just at peace. But while he is in his living his best life, that's when he makes a sacrifice, and then it makes it even more impactful too.
Yeah, and also the thing that brings him around to being an Avenger again, being Iron Man again, is Spider-Man. Is the fact that I mean, the guy is carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Everything you just said applies guilt on him.
Mm.
Spider-Man being gone applies guilt on him. Ultron, like literally everything is just
Everything that happens in every movie just adds to
yeah.
the guilt.
His
Dude,
relationship with Cap, like
yeah.
everything is the reason he gives him back the shield. It's really remarkable how much this guy kind of loads himself. You know,
Right.
even though he puts on the face of, oh, yeah, I'm Iron Man, I'm the one, I'm kicking ass and everything. He's got a lot of issues to say the
Oh,
least,
yeah, for sure.
which is why him as a mentor to Peter Parker is let's say it's questionable. You know,
Yeah.
for all the reasons we listed. You know, but it leads to a film that I think is very interesting and out deals
Yeah.
with guilt and loss, which is Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Iron Man is just come on, and let's be honest, he's Iron Man.
Yeah, he's Iron Man,
he's,
exactly.
he's Iron Man. So in this film, Peter is in a state of deep mourning. You know, I think almost everyone is. Everyone's either partying or they're really sad because the blip happened, like what we talked
Yeah.
about. The blip, which is when the Hulk brought back everyone who was snapped away by Thanos, and here Peter is kind of adjusting to life once again after being resurrected, and he's going on a school trip for the summer. He wants to get away from it all. He just wants to relax because Endgame happened, and that's a lot to deal with. So my question to you is, do you think that this level of mourning and almost PTSD is justified in regards to Peter at this point?
I definitely think so, especially, like, I think for anyone that is, but I think Peter's an interesting character, because I feel like he's always in mourning for something. Not even if it's the death of a loved one or someone he cares about, but I feel like he's always got problems, and he's always got something weighing him down, and that's why he always uses like humor to like help balance everything out when he's like going through all this crazy stuff. But I think even in this film, definitely, I mean, he it's almost like he had to live people might not like that I say this, but it's almost like he had to live through Uncle Ben again. Like, he
Hmm.
lost, like, he had his father figure this whole life, then he lost him. Just as his life was getting better, because, oh, he got these powers, that's cool, 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 cool. Uncle Ben's gone, and tragedy. Then he becomes an Avenger. All these people come back, and then his father figure is gone after so little time. And that definitely impacts them. And I know I wish they could have even touched on that in the movie, saying I keep on losing everyone. And they kind of
Hmm.
mentioned that in the zombies what if.
Yes,
But
yes,
he like keeps on losing people and he keeps on getting hit, which is keep beaten down by life because that's a big thing for Spider-Man. But I definitely think everything he goes through and all the emotion, the baggage he feels, it's not like it comes like out of place or it's like a bad writing. I think it's definitely very well earned, if I want to call that.
yes, yes. Especially considering that I think Far From Home acts almost as an epilogue for that phase of
For sure.
films. You know, where it's very much the aftermath of the big finale that we were building up to. So there's no way when your movie is that for a movie like Endgame, there's no way you can't address the deep
Yeah.
mourning that not only Peter has but everyone, because Iron Man is the one, you know. I love that this movie kind of relays how the audience felt about
Yeah.
Iron Man's death in at the end of Endgame.
No, and it is kind of, I wouldn't say sad because I think Far From Home isn't my favorite film, but I think it does a lot of things well. It's
Hmm.
that it had this responsibility to. It's the first movie after Endgame, so it obviously has to address the blip and everything.
Hmm.
Peter in the MCU was so tied to Tony Stark, so if they didn't acknowledge Tony Stark, that would be bad writing.
Yeah,
So it has
yeah.
to do all these things in addition to telling a sequel to Homecoming and a good Spider-Man story. And I think, it's not like, I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. So I think it did a good job. I think that it addressed what it needed to, and I think it's a solid film.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's everything you just said. It's like trying to balance everything,
Yeah,
and it's insane that this has to act as a sequel for so many films, you know, including Homecoming and
yeah.
Endgame and all that, and it sets up for
Oh,
a whole thing right afterwards, which we'll get to because that is
yeah,
going to be a fun part of the discussion
yeah,
for sure. Um, so one thing I like about this film is I use the word unique, and part of its uniqueness is its setting. You know, it's not New York. This film is going. He's going to Europe for his trip with his friends and everything. What did you think about the idea of Spider-Man going overseas?
I think it's just good old fashioned fun.
Hmm.
It's always fun to see different locations and see all these create the great architecture and stuff. So it's a fun place to be in a setting of a movie. And I would say the first maybe fourth or third is a very like teenage like drama kind of movie. And they're going on a field trip and
Hmm.
going around the world. So it's like fun. It's a fun setting to be in. And I wouldn't say it discounts it, even though Peter Parker, he's the New York friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I think putting him in a different setting is interesting, especially because the past I think six Spider-Man movie,
At that point,
yeah, at that point, yeah, six
yeah.
Spider-Man movies, all in New York. So it did something different, and I don't think it being in another setting makes it like any less of a quality film.
Yeah, me too. I agree because the responsibility follows him wherever he goes, right?
Yeah,
Like he wants in this film to take a break. Just look, I'll be Spider-Man again, but I want to kind of live life for a little bit because
yeah,
it was taken from me and here I am giving it back, right? So I really actually appreciate the fact that he doesn't want to be Spider-Man here because when you look at everything that happened, him
yeah,
coming back, he's immediately going from one battle to another,
yeah.
to a war, and yeah, it makes sense for a kid to act that way. You know, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and so I think it brings up two interesting points. The first one being it plays well with Homecoming because I think as we talked last time, in Homecoming, Peter wants to be Spider-Man. He wants to be an Avenger, not fully grasping what that means and what that can mean for his life. I think
Hmm.
he's a little bit blinded by it's like a celebrity and he gets to be a hero and everyone wants to be a hero. But especially and after Homecoming, I think he learns the burden of it. But especially after Infinity War, he realizes how dark things can get because he's blipped away, but then he comes back and he realizes the earth, like he's been gone for 5 years and
Yeah,
the world's had to go through all that crazy stuff. So like real life can be pretty brutal. So I
yeah,
think after that, he's like, you know what? I have to take a second. I got to be a kid and enjoy my time in high school a little bit and chase after a girl that I like.
hmm,
But at the same time, I like that first, he plans on doesn't want to bring a Spidey suit. He just wants to be in Europe and just enjoy his time. But when trouble arises, he doesn't even hesitate and he
Yeah.
goes right into it because that's like what Spider-Man is. It's what a hero is. And no, like you said, no matter where he is, no matter wherever trouble is, he's gonna do his best to help people, and that just goes to the
Yeah.
heart of Spider.
And one thing I actually like about it is that not only is it the trouble of the elementals that is following him, it's also Nick Fury and his crew coming in to kind of, just to get him involved more into
Yeah,
that Avengers lifestyle. And although people, joke Tom Holland is like the Iron Boy Jr., he's really trying to get away from all that in this film,
yeah.
which I actually think is, no one brings that up in
No,
this
yeah.
film. He's literally saying, "Leave me alone." Like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. I just survived all of that shit, you know?
It's a very meta thing too because they definitely knew about the whole Iron Boy Jr.
Yeah.
like memes, and this movie really addresses it because one, everyone, all the big like he like Nick Fury wants him to be the next Iron Man to make him Iron Man Jr., but also he doesn't want to be that person. He wants to be his own hero, or just not even hero, just be his own person
Yeah,
because he doesn't even himself think he could live up to Tony Stark. So there's that burden as well too.
yeah, that's the greatest part I think of the film. One of the best scenes I think is when he's talking to Happy, and he's saying he's literally everything. Everyone's criticism on him is on his face of, I can't be the next Iron. He literally says, "I can't be the next Iron Man." You know,
Exactly.
like, like it's not gonna happen.
Right.
So that's why it's funny.
Oh,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
I'm all tongue tied now, man. Like, everyone's tonguing my tie. Um, so one aspect I really dig about this, and I'm curious about your thoughts on it, is the love angle in this, where he wants to, tell MJ the feelings. He has a present for her. It's so high school. It's really nice. What did
Yeah.
you think about that?
I loved it. I think that the whole the blend between superhero action movie and high school drama is better in Homecoming,
Right.
but I still enjoy it in this. I just because if you just sit back and enjoy it, it's fun. You see Peter be all dorky and try to do all these fun little things because everyone's been in high school with a crush and you try to impress them and
Yeah.
get your first girlfriend or whatever, and it's fun to see. And I think they handled it well. I mean, I love that he even like does like I forget what the necklace is called.
I think
Uh,
it's the Black Dahlia,
yeah,
I
that's
think.
why I thought so. I just didn't want, I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
want to say the wrong thing and look like an idiot. But yeah, so the Black Dahlia necklace, like, and named after like the murder. Like, I love that he like knows that part about MJ that
Yeah.
he likes, and
It's really adorable.
it's adorable, and it's just fun to watch. Especially because Zendaya and Tom Holland have just such great
Yeah.
chemistry. They're fun to see on the big screen.
Yeah, it works really well, and uh, I think I found that to be the most relatable I had seen Tom Holland
Oh yeah,
in any of the films. Like there's he likes the girl. He's got a special thing for her. The guy who gets in the way.
yeah, I got that one. Oh, freaking not Brock. Oh my god,
Brock.
what's his Brad? Brad, that's his name.
Brad. Yeah.
Brad.
Um.
Freaking Brad.
Yeah. There's always a Brad. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I thought it was very sincere. It was a very sincere aspect of the film, that he wanted to find some sort of happiness because the happiness that he found in idolizing Tony Stark is now gone.
Yeah.
And you could even, if you want to take in comic book lore, Uncle Ben also, he's lost a lot in his life,
Yeah.
and he's lucky to have what he does with Ned, with his aunt and everything, with
Yeah.
Happy. It's a really really sweet part, and I'm very curious how it's going to develop in No Way Home. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually I do. I'm really intrigued because I've only seen it like in one clip. I've been actually trying to stay away from the recent TV spots and the full clips, but I saw
Yeah.
like one scene when like MJ and Peter are being a little flirty and then Ned's there as like a little third wheel. So I'm really excited to see how that dynamic is going to work. How one Peter's friends with Ned, but then he also is getting close to MJ and he wants to be close to MJ, and how that's going to affect the relationship. Because whenever you have like a relationship and then there's like one friend in the middle, it's a third wheel. It's like really awkward and hard.
Yeah.
And but obviously Peter loves Ned. I mean, like they're
Yeah.
best of friends.
It's always
I
gonna.
love their like little handshake
Yeah.
too and everything. So I'm excited to see how it's gonna play, especially for like some of these like emotional scenes because I wonder if Peter's gonna have a breakdown moment in front of both of them together, or one or the other. And I really hope him and Ned have really nice heart to heart, because I think one of my favorite all time superhero scenes is the scene in Spider-Man 3 when Harry comes and saves them, and then there's the obviously the
Yeah.
death
Oh
scene.
my
Like
God.
it's great, and
The theme
even though
plays.
oh,
Dude, that was
but
the first time we'd ever seen Spider-Man team up with anyone.
I know, and I gotta admit that scene still gets me more hyped than like the Portal scene in Endgame or the Thor scene in Infinity War. Nothing for me tops that Spider-Man 3 scene. But
Ugh.
and even like Harry um is not like, even in those Raimi movies, isn't always even the best characterized. Like sometimes he's all over the place, he got amnesia
Right,
and
yeah.
all that. It's messy. But like but Ned, for example, he's very well written in both
Yeah.
movies.
I
So I'm
love
excited
that.
to see like I hope they get a really good emotional scene where it's just two friends who have just very like brotherly love, and it's like I hope that there's just something, because Peter's definitely going to get put through the ringer in this movie, just based on the trailers alone. So I can't wait.
Yeah.
I hope they do something with that.
Yeah, one thing I want to bring up real quick is the in Endgame, you see the montage of everyone kind of reuniting,
Oh,
and when it cuts to them and they bring in Ned and they do that handshake, it is the most
oh.
heartwarming thing. One of the most heartwarming parts post Iron Man snap, because like that for me is as two best friends. They hadn't seen each other. They're about to cry. They're about to.
It's so emotional.
Oh my.
It's literally no, literally it gets me like choked up. Like it's an
Yeah.
amazing scene because you also have to think about the fact that first of all, in Infinity War, Peter goes off and
Yeah.
goes onto this ring to fight, and then you see the
We're
ring
all
going to
gonna die.
like literally. And Ned though, because we never see his perspective. If my friend, I knew he was Spider-Man, he first of all swung off to go fight this alien ring. Then the alien ring goes into space.
Hmm.
He probably calling him, not picking up. You're freaking out because you think he might be dead.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. Then you have the fact that Peter was realizes he's gone for 5 years during that endgame battle. He doesn't know what Ned's if Ned was blipped away or if something happened to him during those 5 years. So to see them reunite, oh, it's so good. It's such a
Yeah.
heartwarming scene. No dialogue or anything, just like good
Yeah.
music and amazing scene.
It's really beautiful, and the fact that they kept the continuity of the handshake is
Yeah,
a
I love it.
brilliant part of it.
Yeah,
But specifically back to the MJ and Peter relationship,
yeah.
I'm really hoping one thing that, and I think it's going to be in the film, one thing that can make it strong is seeing how both of them rely on each other during these tough times. You know, how they work together as a unit, because that's what a relationship is. It's a partnership. And I'm very curious how that's going to be depicted in this film, because in a lot of other Spider-Man films, we see the romance as something that even when they're together, it's still there's distance no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how here it's going to be differentiated. So how do you think the MJ and Peter relationship in the MCU differs from all other relationships we've seen in the films?
I'm really excited for it for a couple reasons. First of all, I really don't like MJ in those Raimi movies. I think she's definitely one of the worst written characters, and not anything fault to the actors, Kirsten Dunst. Like I think she did great with what she was given, but
Right.
like MJ is all over the place, and sometimes his acts bizarre. It's up in the air. But and then we have
Right.
Gwen in the Amazing Spider-Man, where in the second one you get that whole guilt of like him seeing Captain Stacy all the time, and like he does it like he wants to be with her, and then he stalks her at the beginning, and then they date, and then like something awkward happens in between, and and they're cute, you like root for them. Then just when they like meet and they're all together, she dies and all that stuff. So I'm
She's
you know how it is. A
right.
girlfriend casually dies, but in
Yeah.
this one, I mean, there's been so much build up to MJ, and I feel like I'm really excited to see Zendaya do her thing because she's an amazing actress. I don't know if you've seen Euphoria, but she's phenomenal in
Hmm.
that show.
I've not,
And
unfortunately.
it's a great show. But like in the first one, she's a very much a side character and there for like laughs. The second one, I think definitely is more prevalent, but we haven't seen the deep emotional connection with Peter yet. And I'm really hoping that we get that in this movie. And like because she can play, she's a great actress, and I think that there's so much like MJ is so important to Peter's character, the same way Aunt May is, and everything else, like especially in those stories, a great like emotional support, but also just someone to be there for Peter. and especially because she is literally going to be with Peter capturing these villains. And to some extent, I doubt Ned or her be on the battlefield. Maybe they'll be like the person in the chair, or they'll be doing some
Yeah.
tech stuff. Who knows? Like, I'm sure that she's going to be helping one way or another. So I'm sure there's going to be a scene where Peter, another time when Peter breaks down, and then she's just there to comfort him, and we're like, we'll get through this together or something. And I'm hoping for something big like that.
Yeah, me too, man. Because I think that's probably gonna what make that's what's going to make the ending. No matter, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Right? Yeah.
Some people do know because apparently there are reviews coming out at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
I heard it. I've seen most of them are spoiler free, but like I know like the variety one isn't because like they like put a bunch of spoilers. But I've been staying clear as much from social media as I can.
Yeah, for real, dude. I mean, whatever happens to make this the sad film that it's being promoted as, I
Yeah,
think it's going to make it even sadder when we see them together
yeah,
in the way that they will be.
yeah. Because what and whether or not like whether or not if she like dies in this or if she survives and forgets who Peter is
Hmm.
or who knows what's gonna happen. I mean, it could have a happy ending with MJ, and it could be I don't know. Who knows? But
Hmm.
I'm assuming just based on like you said the way they're marketing it, I imagine it's one of the two depressing answers.
Yeah.
But I mean, either way, I think it'll be so heartbreaking and fun to watch in a bad way, just because like sometimes it's like a wow moment. Like it would be brutal if we saw either one like just him having to let go of MJ and like he knows he's gonna have to. Oh, that'd be heartbreaking.
Yeah. No, that's I don't know if I'm ready for Thursday, dude. I don't know if I'm physically ready
I
for
know.
because we're not like we're talking about like we've been talking for like 15 minutes or something about their relationship in the third film. We
Yeah.
haven't brought up Toby, Andrew, Willem,
Oh
everything
yeah.
else, and we're getting worried now, just about that one part of.
And you know, oh,
No, I'm sorry. I'm
oh no
freaking
no
out.
no no,
Please,
you're
Yanni,
true because
take
like
it. Take it.
and something that I've liked in the like the spoiler free reviews is that they said this is Tom Holland's movie, and that's
Good.
I think one of the biggest things everyone was worried about that either the villains were going to overshadow it, or you know the rumored other Spider-Man were going to overshadow it, or something, or it'd be too fan servicey. The fact
Hmm.
that people have all everyone has really said Tom Holland shines, that this is a Tom Holland Peter movie. I'm so excited because yeah, I want a fan service movie, but I want a good Peter Parker Spider-Man movie because that's what it's supposed to be first and foremost. Because if you
Yeah.
do because fan service can also be poorly done. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of hope that we do get these great scenes that are just for the MCU Peter Parker. That he has stuff with MJ, he has stuff with Ned, also stuff with Aunt May. That's one of the big things. That's one of my,
Yes.
actually my criticisms of Far From Home
I
that I
agree.
do hope that they do in this next movie that they give her some good scenes.
Yeah, well, we can definitely talk about that because you and I are seeing eye to eye on that. One aspect that I want to talk about next is
Mhm.
about Far From Home is the inclusion of Nick Fury. Nick Fury being one of the big characters of the MCU. You know, they have the big MCU character in each film, obviously Iron Man, Nick Fury, Doctor Strange. So, what did you think of the inclusion in this film of Nick Fury? He's hijacking the summer vacation. He's yelling at Peter. There's a revelation about Nick Fury by the end. What did you think about all that?
I think it's very interesting. I was skeptical at first, and I think it's funny because when you're watching the movie, you get this sense that Nick Fury is off. And first, and even after watching, like, there's the big reveal that he's a Skrull,
Yeah.
and you know, you're like, one, well, is it because of the writing that he felt off, or is it intentional because he
Hmm.
is a Skrull and is not an exact person? But excuse me, sorry.
No
Regardless,
worries.
though, it fits like well that Nick Fury's off. He doesn't seem like the normal Nick Fury that he is, and like he does things that seem out of character. That's because it's not him, but it's still an interesting roadblock and just a interesting plot device that Peter's trying to get out, and Nick Fury is trying to pull him back in and like make him the hero because Nick Fury is desperate at that point because most of his heroes are dead, and if not, they're not dead. They're all doing something else.
Yeah.
I think Peter's like one of the most easy to pull back in because he's a kid, so he's like susceptible to things, and he has less demanding, a less demanding presence because he is a kid.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's the easiest target, and just because he's also underratedly powerful. So
Yeah.
he's an interesting person for Nick Fury to try to take advantage of in that film.
Yeah. I think it's funny because ever since Far From Home, we've obviously had other shows revolved around this time in the MCU's timeline. You know,
Mhm.
WandaVision has come out. I was about to call it Captain America. Falcon and Winter
Yeah.
Soldier has come out, and I just think like, what about Wanda? What's Wanda doing?
I know, there is I feel like I actually I liked WandaVision. I
Yeah.
think it was not as good as I hope, but whatever. But it's a really good show. I love it. And there's some of the things that the two things I wish we would have seen is one, that Hawkeye showed up to some extent, but
Mhm.
he's got his own problems because especially because I don't know, we've gotten conflicting results on when Hawkeye takes place. Like some people say it's like 2 years after, and then we also got
Oh,
reports that said it's in like really close to No Way Home and Far From Home. So who knows? But
yeah.
I'm assuming Clint's off doing his own stuff and he's got his own family. But like I wish that we would have seen someone like an Avenger try to go to Wanda, but maybe that even leads to the character that people forget about her, or she doesn't have like a deep personal connection to anyone. But it's interesting that like yeah, he is the hero that's checked up on. And
Yeah.
I have another topic to talk about. We'll say that I have another blip relation to just because you said WandaVision and a Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they handle the blip so differently than in Far From Home, which I like
Yeah.
actually. I
Me
like
too.
that it's in Far From Home, it's played as like comedic relief. Like I laughed that was one of the jokes I even still laugh at when they come back and the band get hit with the basketball. It's so funny. And I think a lot of people were worried that, oh my God, they're going to use this as a joke in the MCU. And then we get a WandaVision, which we get that insane, I think it is a one-shot scene in
Yeah.
that hospital, and then in Falcon and Winter Soldier, they got that group of
The Flag
organization,
Smashers.
Flag Smashers, who like wants to bring it back before the blip. I like that they're doing both of it. I think it works really well that you can make it a joke and you can make it also really serious because it
Yeah,
doesn't
I
need.
that's a great point. One of the most, in my opinion, one of the most underrated jokes in the movie is from Martin Starr's character, who says, uh, "Did I ever tell you about how my wife pretended to blip, or snap or whatever?" You
It's
know?
so funny. And I gotta say, I also love. I didn't know that Martin Starr, like, because he was in Silicon Valley, and I love that
Yeah.
show. But him being in this movie was amazing to me, and he's so funny with the gym teacher, and that scene on the bridge, and he's like, "I'm doing my best," like,
I'm doing my best, Julius.
exactly.
Oh yeah, JB. Yeah, one thing that we haven't really talked about with the John Watts films of Spider-Man is how there are a lot of comedic actors in the
Oh yeah,
film. Got Hannibal Buress, JB Smoove in this one, Martin Starr. Is there anyone
great
I'm
at
missing?
names. I suck at names. That's so
Oh.
impressive that you just named all these actors. Because I'm thinking myself, I know their faces. I am terrible with names. I'm even terrible with like superhero names sometimes. I blank out all the time. It's a problem.
You know, I just remember JB Smoove because I'm a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, and he's great
Mm.
on it. Is like, when he was said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be in Spider-Man," I'm just thinking, please be Leon. Please be Leon once again. Go up to Spider-Man and say, "The what you need to do right now, okay, is tap that F." to Peter Parker.
I've seen like those are clips from Curb Your Enthusiasm on Twitter. I didn't watch the show before yet. I got to one of these days. But I've
Uh,
seen a bunch of clips that are hilarious.
oh
I
my
think
god.
even actually after Far From Home, I looked up clips of him just because he's hilarious. But he's so funny.
Oh my god, he is funny. Very quickly, is there a comedic actor you want to see in future Spider-Man films, like maybe No Way Home, 4?
Um, you know what? Someone that I love that is a comedic actor was actually Bill Burr, and I would loved him in The Mandalorian because it's
Yeah.
interesting. He has a really like a funny role, but then he also hits a quick turn and he's super serious. I love
Yeah.
when they go into like um I forget what's it called? Project
The oh the when they the mission.
yeah, I forget what the thing is when like in Star Wars lore when like they send off like destroying like planets that are part of the Empire. I
Right.
forgot what that's called. So
Yeah, I
Project
forgot too.
Cinder, that's what it's called.
Oh,
Project
okay,
Cinder
Project
and
Cinder,
like
right.
different like a republic like Imperials were like supposed to destroy their own home worlds. It was like brutal and like when you see him like recollecting that time, he acts phenomenally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean he's probably the only one I could think of like off the top of my head who would fit great in that because I'm actually not familiar with a lot of comedic actors,
Oh, okay.
comedians. I'm not,
Seth Rogen. Imagine Seth Rogen is Craven the Hunter now. um, You know, it's funny you bring up Bill Burr because I did a podcast years ago with Angel and our friend Kevin, who asked us, "Can I pitch on your channel the sequel, this film of Spider-Man in the MCU?" Like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And he had Bill Burr in his pitch, but it wasn't as just one of these comedic roles. It was actually as the villain, and the villain was uh Doc Ock.
Interesting.
It was very interesting. I recommend everyone listen to that because it's not. I mean, obviously, when you hear that, it's like, what the fuck? Like, but you listen to it in context. It's actually fairly interesting, you know.
Yeah.
So everyone give that a listen to, please.
Guys, please watch it. I'll check
So
that out.
hey, man, we're talking about villains. Let's talk about
Let's
the
talk about it.
the one who messed Spider-Man up in a way that we had never seen before in film. Uh, so the character we're going to be talking about is Mysterio. This is a character that fans have been waiting on since the Raimi days. Uh,
Oh
Bruce
yeah, because
Campbell.
Bruce Campbell was supposed to play him in the fourth or fifth one. I can't remember what the plan
I
was.
think it was the fourth one.
It was fourth one, yeah.
There's concept art animatics of him
Yeah,
being taken in as Mysterio.
I love that photo. It's great.
I wish that happened, man, because that would have. I'm convinced that each cameo he was playing Quentin Beck in the
Oh, for
Spider-Man
sure.
films.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
come
I
on,
think that's definitely was the whole point. That was the setup. Like that he's in all these different roles, like a meta joke as well.
yeah, man. I mean, oh, that sucks. Like honestly, Bruce Campbell was standing. Um, we've been waiting for Mysterio for a very long time. It's one of those characters that you can't even imagine how they're going to adapt because in the comics, it's Quentin Beck, who's someone who tried to be an actor. They called him ugly, so he decided to be in practical effects, and he robs banks and he wears the costume, this ridiculous costume, and he uses practical effects and illusions, kind of somewhat like Scarecrow from Batman.
Hmm.
Here they are adapting him for the MCU, and they cast, of all actors, they cast Jake Gyllenhaal. So, what did you think of this interpretation of the character?
I gotta admit, first of all, I was so excited. Like I was like, oh my god, we're gonna see the fishbowl head dude in this movie on the big screen. I was so nervous on how they were gonna do that and make it look cool.
Yeah,
They nailed it perfectly. And it was actually, I think, one of the few times because they released concept art, and the concept art doesn't look that great in my opinion, from what I'm remembering. I'm like, thank God, this is one of the few times the concept art looks worse. And because they nailed it in
yeah.
this movie, I could not imagine a better Mysterio suit. He looks perfect. And also just Jake Gyllenhaal, phenomenal actor. I love him in Nightcrawler. Love that movie.
Oh, Nightcrawler, yeah,
He's a
fantastic.
great actor. So he nailed this role. I love the scene in the bar when things shift. It is so eerie and creepy and well done. I think that, like I love everything about this interpretation of the character. I even love it that he's an ex-Stark
Yeah,
employee. I mean the barf joke, it gets old, but I think it's a cool connection because it sets. I don't remember what the theories were at the time of this movie, but if people were, I didn't see any theories that people were thinking that tech from Civil War was anything related to Mysterio. That this illusion,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know if you know.
I saw
Theorizing that.
one comment on our channel. I saw one comment months before that suggested this theory. And I was
Wow.
thinking that could be cool because all the other theories I heard about Mysterio and what he was doing and the
Yeah.
setup, you know, like because they set up that Mysterio is a multi-dimensional hero that
Yeah.
the elementals fall or he followed the elementals and he's here to stop them. Obviously, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But all the theories I heard about he's an alternate version of Spider-Man from another Earth.
I do
You know?
remember that one actually.
Like
Because
he's a hero and Spider-Man was a villain on his planet, right? Like everything.
yeah. Because something we haven't even talked about too is that they teased this idea of the multiverse. There, I remember we thought we were gonna get like the British Spider-Man because everyone thought that one scene where he's jumping out of the plane, it looked like he had like the flag on his like back, just like in that superhero costume in the comics does. People thought this was gonna be a multiverse movie. And they did the best bait and switch that it's
Yes,
nowhere near. And even as comic book fans, we're watching and we're like, we know Mysterio's bad. We know
right.
something happened with this, but we don't know if they're gonna change it because the MCU does non-comic accurate things all the time just for the betterment of a story. So we had no clue what was gonna go on. So they handled it really well. I love the way what they did with this character, and it's like it's such a fun thing because, like I said, like they do this little thing in Civil War, and you don't think anything of it because
Right.
it's just some random scene where he's like talking and donating to kids, and there's like an underlying theme later on where he's like confronted by the woman, but essentially it's just put there randomly, and you don't even think about it, and then boom, and this movie comes back to bite you, and it comes right back up.
It's it really is brilliant, honestly. It's a brilliant use of world building. I love that after the fact you realize that in that scene, in the span of like what 5 minutes, Tony Stark made two enemies, that woman and Mysterio. That's like everywhere this guy goes, he's starting shit, and it's
Yeah,
ridiculous. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Everyone's thinking that the multiverse is actually going to be in play here,
yeah,
and I love that it's first of all. I love that it's the movie's kind of laughing at that.
yeah,
Like they
yeah.
know everyone is gonna think, oh, and this and this and this, and they literally take a moment to say, he's like cheering on the script writer for his Mysterio persona. He's
Yeah.
like, man, that is such a ridiculous idea that anyone is gonna believe it,
Right. Literally poke fun at all the viewers, like, wow, we all fell for this thing.
and I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I'm cool with it too. I think it's such a fun way, and it plays interesting with the fact that like originally, I don't know if you saw this, but the marketing for No Way Home, they said that they weren't gonna do anything with the villains until Alfred Molina straight up said he's from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
But like they were gonna do a whole different marketing routine where they weren't gonna introduce the multiverse at all, and it was gonna be a
Mhm.
big surprise. Switch that with Far From Home, where they completely it was in every
Yeah,
trailer that
yeah.
I think, at least to my knowledge, that he mentioned he's from the multiverse, and then he's not. I think they did it so well. It was
Yeah,
perfect.
it's really smart marketing, man. It's
Yeah.
really, I love it. I love the idea, and it sets up No Way Home fairly well. At
Yeah.
least ideally, they're dealing with the multiverse. Peter's grasping the idea of the multiverse, and now here it is actually coming to fruition. And I think that's really brilliant setup.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love. By the way, I just want to comment on Jake's performance as Mysterio.
Oh,
I think it is super underrated because he's playing up at first when everyone's believing him, he's playing up the nuances of the standard superhero actor performance, right?
yeah.
He's like he looks off into the distance, he grabs his ring and everything. He's like he says, I hope when he's gonna sacrifice himself, like
Yeah.
I think it's a very clever approach to playing the hero, and then you have him just being completely braggadocious when it's revealed he's a villain and
He
everything.
gets like manic sometimes.
Yeah,
He's like screaming and crazy, like that one thing like turns the drones on his own people and stuff. Oh my gosh. He has such a range in this movie. He's phenomenal.
yeah, and I love that you brought up Nightcrawler. I was exactly reminded of his role in that with this film, and I'm sure that movie is what inspired the casting
Oh
for
yeah.
Mysterio here because they are him and Edward Bloom are very similar characters in that they both can get very manic. They're both out of their mind, and they're going to
No.
do whatever they can, including killing or letting someone die to get to the next level of success.
So
Oh
I
yeah.
just realized my computer is gonna die.
Oh, no
So
worries, dude. No
I just got a
worries.
notification. I'm like, whoops! I haven't been charging.
No
Sorry.
worries. No worries, dude.
We're all
Is it?
good.
We're good.
Technical difficulties. We're all good now.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant character and brilliant performance.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, like I'm sure that because he's been a great actor in so many different movies, but that Nightcrawler role is definitely my favorite of his. He's phenomenal in that movie.
And do you think he's truly dead?
I'm one of those people. It's more of desperation of hope that he's not dead. I feel like what they'll end up doing is they'll make that the guy who was yelled at by Ironmonger and when he's like Tony Stark was able to build this, and
Yes,
like
the
that
Ralphie
guy.
from A Christmas Story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I remember that's one of those facts that I heard about like a couple of years ago, but I forgot about that. But I think he might end up being the next Mysterio. They might do
Mm,
something like that. but I would love if he was brought back. He's not actually dead. It would be so cool because one, he's playing the long game, convincing the whole world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and doing that whole thing. And because the whole world believes he's a hero in all this, so it's really a great thing, especially if he says he comes back and he's like, "Oh, I went to hiding," or "I'm a different version of Mysterio," or who knows what he'll say. But
Yeah.
I think I would love if he was alive still.
I would love it too. I would love it too, especially because mainly because of the casting, and I want to see that actor interact with a lot of the other characters in who are villains in the
Yeah.
Marvel universe. You know, like Michael Keaton as the Vulture. That would be fantastic.
I cannot wait to see their Sinister Six. I'm really intrigued because they've like hinted at like Morbius and Venom being a part of it. Like their characters are very not villainous. It
Right.
seems like off the trailers. I'm really curious to see how they're going to handle Venom too, but that's a whole
Yeah.
other story. But so I'm intrigued to see. I would love to see Mysterio in that Sinister in this future Sinister Six,
I
and
agree. Yeah.
and even on a more like fun like fan theory side, like it's interesting that like because he had full control over Edith and like all like the abilities were given to him. So
Mhm.
like the fact that Edith says, "Oh yeah, all illusions are done," like he never like revokes control because there's a whole scene in the bar when he like, gives full control over and like
Yes.
Beck never gives full control back to Peter, but like takes the glasses. So either a plot hole or a cool little thing that could hint like, "Oh yeah, Edith is under my control," and I programmed her to say that or something like that. Who knows? That's
Yeah.
getting into more like reach territory, but let me have this. I
Well,
want to believe. I want to believe he's alive.
the MCU is good at that in that they look at things from the past and they kind of develop upon those. You know, things that were at one point plot holes
Oh yeah,
are now
and then,
plot points.
right, and that's so clever, and it's so fun because it's also like a aha moment. Like he's like, "Oh, I remember that," and that's fun if they build off of that.
Um, One thing I think is very fundamental about Mysterio and his motive is the involvement of media, you know, and how people can be swayed in one direction or the other.
Yeah,
And obviously, this sets up heavily the conflict for No Way Home. You know, he's being hunted down by everyone, by cops, by media, by the Avengers, maybe. You know, who knows? The villains for sure. You
yeah.
know,
Who know? Yeah, who knows?
everyone is coming after him, and I love that one of the I think it's the last line he says is that they'll believe anything. You know, so what do you think about that? It's kind of commentary. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it definitely is more of a real world commentary that I mean people will believe anything. I mean, the number of times where there's been like news stories of like that turn out to be fake like an hour later because like oh people just did a prank or like news sites just jumped the gun too soon. They didn't check sources. They didn't even bother investigating. They
Yeah.
just saw a thing. I mean, that happens all the time. Or people like read clickbait headlines and they believe it's the truth no matter what. Like people nowadays, I think, are so easily swayed and will believe anything, as Mysterio says. So I definitely think it could be a commentary. And I think people don't talk about that enough. But it definitely has real world applications. And like you said, too, it does have very interesting story applications because in this next film, we're going to see the public is split and a lot of them believe Mysterio, but a lot of them also side with Peter Parker. So I'm really intrigued to see how they handle it in the movie as well.
Yeah, I wonder how because I love that this is something that is kind of hinting the future of Peter and his relationship with people and the press. You know,
Yeah.
I mean he's in the third film already getting his rivalry with Jameson started. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that is extended as his career goes on.
Yeah. And
You
this
know,
goes into more theories, but like especially if the whole world forgets Spider-Man. Even they might even forget he's an Avenger. They might like forget all this stuff, and we don't know what's going to be with Spider-Man at the end. But like assuming that the world does forget, then maybe there'll be more people who even just are apprehensive to heroes because
yeah.
they just never knew this who this wall color is, especially if J. Jonah Jameson is going to keep on trying to sway the public. Like you never know. So I think
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see that sort of public is some of the public is with him, some of the public is against him.
Yeah, yeah, and what you just said, it feels like they're trying to, if they are gonna wipe everyone's mind by the end of this new film, it's like they're taking him back to square one in terms
Mhm.
of no one knows who he is, and he's completely alone. He's not an Avenger anymore, right? So that's literally him being stripped away from the MCU in a way. You
Yeah,
know, he has to kind of start over his relationship, and I think that's clever, a clever response to a lot of the criticism Tom Holland has
yeah.
gotten. You know, like you're the Iron Man's kid, you're an Avenger, you're too much in the MCU. Okay, well now the next option, the only option I have is to be taken out, not literally, but
But
spiritually. You know,
yeah, and it's almost doing a soft reboot without doing a soft reboot.
yeah,
You know, they
yeah.
have it like very much in the lore of this world, and it makes sense, and it's almost like logical that like all these changes, yeah, they're gonna change the writing maybe a little bit or change the direction that they had. Or I mean, there were rumors that like supposedly this whole trilogy was supposed to like he wasn't supposed to start as Peter Parker, like the iconic Spider-Man, but by the end he's supposed to, which I'm sure will probably even happen. But I think they're setting this all up so they could do like this thing of now Peter is the Spider-Man that everyone knows and loves, and that's when he gets the good stuff. And when he's in college, and get some cool another new trilogy.
Yeah, I love what you said about it's a soft reboot without really changing anything continuity speaking.
Yeah,
And that theme hits even harder because they're bringing back the guys he rebooted.
yeah, right, exactly.
So, oh man, this one thing I really appreciate the Watts Spider-Man films is that they are very meta. You know, they're in on a lot of the jokes. They
Yeah,
get it. So I think that's gonna. I'm really looking forward to what they do in No Way Home in regards to that.
yeah, I completely agree. Oh.
Thank you for agreeing with me, my friend. It warms my
Yeah,
heart,
it
man.
warms your heart, boosts the ego a little bit
A
too, a little
little
bit of
bit.
both.
Yeah, so we talked about the media, we talked about the multiverse. Um, one thing we have to talk about. It's the premise of the next film. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I mean, we've been talking a lot about this, but specifically, how do you think the reveal of his identity changes the character as we know him?
It's really interesting because it's interesting, I think, for a lot of reasons. One, if you want to relate it back to Tony Stark, like Tony Stark went out in his own volition. Peter was forced into it. And in the comics, we know whenever people know Peter Parker's identity, never a good thing. Bad things always happen.
Yeah.
And another thing is just it plays well with the theme of the movie because at points Peter Parker doesn't want to be Spider-Man. And now the world is not giving him that choice. Now he will forever be known as Spider-Man. Like Peter Parker is almost dead because the world is going to view him as some teenager. They're going to view him as this Avenger who even possibly killed Mysterio. So it I think really does play well with the film. And it's funny because both those Homecoming ends with the like Aunt May finding out thing, and that was also I think an interesting choice because one, it's fun because it's like great. I'm glad Aunt May knows he doesn't have to balance around that too, but it also takes out like the subtlety because I think we see it in all the Spider-Man movies where like Aunt May doesn't know, but she actually does know.
Yeah, yeah.
She acts like she doesn't know, but secretly she
She
does.
knows. Yeah.
Yeah, she knows. So it's an interesting choice, and I think it does play well with Homecoming, and like I said, well with the Iron Man thing. So I think it was a great choice. I think it was really fun, and it was a crazy moment in the theater where you're like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen next?" I think
Yeah.
it's a great setup.
Yeah, and also you brought up Aunt May, who we both agreed that I think she's one of the weaker elements of the
Yeah,
film.
sadly, yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, because well, for one thing, she's barely in the film, um,
yeah,
and I think that's unfortunate because there are scenes where she could be implemented, and it could strengthen, I think, the narrative. An example is the scene with Peter and Happy in where was he, like Finland or something?
I want to say it was
The,
Finland because it makes a joke that everyone in Finland is so nice.
the Netherlands.
It was one of those European countries where they're notorious for having nice people.
Yeah. Well, he's not where he should be in the world, obviously, and Happy comes to him. It must have been a scheduling conflict because I don't see any reason why Aunt May would not be there to make sure the kid is okay, you know?
And you know, I was thinking about that because I recently made a TikTok about like that. I hope that Marissa Tomei gets more time to shine as Aunt May because first of all, great actress, and then
Mhm.
she had some beautiful scenes in Homecoming. But the reason why I felt like this seems like a scene that Aunt May would be because Aunt May is always that person who convinces is Peter's moral compass too, both MJ and Aunt May, but Aunt May I think more is more like the crutch that holds Peter's like life together. She's always there giving those emotional speeches and the motivational speeches. And I think that the only reason they did that is because I think if you want to talk about the Tony Stark connection, like I feel like it hits harder when Happy says you can't be the next Iron Man. No one can be
Yeah.
because he was
He knew
Tony's
Iron Man.
he
Yeah.
knew Iron Man for years and years and
Yeah.
years. So I think that's why they did that. But it does also feel weird, like why like Aunt May is the person to be there. Like so I'm very torn. I'm more upset the fact that Aunt May really is a joke in this movie because
Right.
a joke in the sense like they don't make fun of Aunt May, but it's the only thing she exists for is the dating Happy joke.
Yeah.
That there's like it's a weird thing for Peter, and there's the awkwardness between
Yeah.
Happy and Aunt May. Like she doesn't. The one thing I think that she does that's like cute, that's like a really the aunt thing to do is that she's like, oh, just be yourself, you'll be fine. She's gonna
Yeah.
say yes, like, and if she doesn't say yes, it's okay. Like when like Peter's like talking about asking out MJ, and then that was it was a small scene, but it was a great scene. That's like probably the best of Aunt May that we get in that movie, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's fair what you brought up about why it was just Happy. Um, I think that that is fair, but at the same time, I think Aunt May, if she was there, we would get to see a different element of the relationship. First of all, between her and Happy,
Right.
because the joke is that it's
So summer
a
fling.
summer fling or
Yeah.
something, and okay, all right, that's great, but I just don't think that he I don't think Aunt May, especially after losing Uncle Ben, would first of all go for something as casual as that. And second of all, I want to see her relationship with Peter fleshed out before anyone else, especially if it's going to be a joke.
Yeah.
If she's there in that scene in the plane, we can see how her and Happy work as a relationship, and she was there when Peter lost Ben. I don't know why she wouldn't be there when he lost Tony,
Yeah.
especially if she's going to be at the funeral. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
So I think it's kind of criminal.
No,
How?
and to that point, it's very interesting because I think it just goes back to the poor choices with Ame because I think part of the reason she wasn't there is because they treat their Happy and hers relationship as a summer fling that's supposed to be a joke.
Right.
So I think if she was in that scene and we saw both her Happy and him, sorry, Happy and on May comforting Peter, I think that would have solidified their relationship more, and that
Right.
wasn't what their goal was. Their goal is supposed to make it a joke. So I think that the writing is working against themselves
Right.
because it does. It would be a great scene to see both Peter, first of all, sees Aunt May is happy with
Right.
Happy, and it would have been like, oh wow, because there's always that awkward thing when like they do it in even they did it in Hawkeye. There's a great scene where Kate doesn't want her mom to date some new guy, but then she sees that one scene where they're dancing. She's like, wow,
That's
she's
nice.
happy.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her smile or dance or be anything in all these years. So you feel, I mean, I can't speak to it personally because my parents, I don't have a divorce in my family, but like
Right.
I'm sure that there's like that scene where the person's like, wow, I love seeing them happy. So first of all, that would be great for Peter's perspective, but it would be great to show that Happy and Aunt May are both nurturing Peter Parker and both are there to help him. It would been a beautiful scene. I completely agree. It just
Yeah.
I think with the writing that they did with the making it a joke, it worked against themselves.
Yeah, we're certainly talking about two objectives, right? Like
Yeah.
the objective of their relationship in this film is to have that scene of them saying, "Oh, I'm not sure what we're going to see
Right.
what happens
Yeah.
everything," and that for me is less impactful than the alternative,
Yeah.
especially if Happy is going to play a key role in this next film. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
I don't. Also, the idea of seeing that, right? Seeing Happy and Aunt May together. If Peter sees that, it shows that you can move on from
Yeah.
these past tragedies.
Yeah.
Like Peter could see a bit of himself in Aunt May, but
Yeah.
what he could have with someone like MJ. I'm just
Yeah.
back
And
off
you
from the
know, it's
topic.
good. You're so no, it's so true. And I think that is like again a big criticism of this movie that
Yeah.
they really just did not do Ame justice, and there were so many possibilities. The joke at the end, my opinion, isn't even that funny. I don't know if
Right.
I like it. It's like meh. It's like it's fine, but like it, and it's also the fact that like wow, they had this great opportunity and they kind of like squandered it a little bit.
Yeah, and I also like I like Happy. You know,
Yeah.
the idea of them together, I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, why not? That's cool.
Yeah. And I really am curious how they're going to handle Aunt May and Happy in this next movie, and also how they're just going to handle the characters in general. I'm very, very interested. Also, just because I mean, everyone there's people who think Aunt May's going to die. There's people who think Happy's going to die. There's people who think Ned or MJ's. Who knows who? Maybe they all die. but like I'm really hope that especially if it's a character send off, that is they do them justice. You know.
I agree. I agree. I'm hoping Marissa Tomei is given more in this.
Yeah.
I have always considered Aunt May the backbone of Peter Parker, and this he needs help in this situation, especially that emotional support, not only just from MJ, from Aunt May as well. So I'm hoping. Here's hoping
Yeah,
that
he was hoping. Yeah.
she's got potential for sure.
Yeah, especially because I feel like she always gets the short end of the stick also in the public perception because everyone's like, oh, she looks young. But first of all, she's the aunt. Like age-wise, it makes first of all sense too, but also in the comics, yeah, sometimes, especially in originally, she was really old, but in times in comics, she's not always like old, like
Right.
dying grandma old. Like there is definitely a range in comic books. So it's like it's not out of character. So especially because like in Homecoming, she has great scenes and she's a great actress. And I hope that even though Far From Home, she didn't have the best, she couldn't do that much in the story. I hope that in this next, the final film of the trilogy, I hope she shines.
I agree. I mean, she can't help that she looked good at that age.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. People are just jealous, but you know, everyone wants to look at that
He
good.
looks good, man. Damn. But yeah, no, I completely agree, Yanni, because we all want the best Spider-Man film that we can get,
Yeah,
and it looks like that might be the case with this.
yeah. It's looking like it. I try not to get too ahead of myself, but damn, I mean, it looks like it.
It's gonna be a hell of an experience, at least,
I
to
cannot
watch
wait.
this. Far from home, far from reality, bruh. 'Cause any last thoughts on Far From Home and how it excites you for No Way Home?
You know, I'm intrigued to see how there's a lot of great things in this movie. Obviously, all the Mysterio illusions are great. There are some really there's a lot of great spectacle, and there's a lot of stuff that's not great, but and it drags the movies down quality as a whole. But the stuff that's good is great, and I hope that in this next movie they just take all that great stuff and then make it the whole movie. I feel like especially because they definitely heard the criticism
Yeah,
from Far From Home, and I'm hoping that they just learn from it and they're just taking what's best with this trilogy, taking what's best with these characters, and just making the best finale that they can. So I think they have a lot of great setup. Things have been all the pieces have been put into place, and that hopefully this just is amazing, an amazing movie.
come
Yeah,
on. You got it right in front of you. It's the goal. There's no goalie or anything. Your
yeah,
foot's ready. You've been kicking balls all day. This is the one. Do it.
yeah, exactly.
All right, Yanni. Hey, man, that's what we got for Far From Home. I'm appreciative of you coming once again to talk to me about Spider-Man because this is just all part of the journey home. Where can the people find you, my friend?
So you can find me at Yanni's Nerdverse on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. I post everywhere at least once a day. So if you want any sort of content for Marvel, DC, Star Wars, anything nerdy, check me out there. And Julius, thank you for having me. I love talking to you about nerd stuff. So I can't wait for the next time we talk.
I know
Who
it's
knows what
gonna.
it'll be about?
Who knows? It'll be about anything, and I
Yeah,
hope Angel's there with us. You guys can also find him on our YouTube channel. He was part of our live discussion about the the
awesome.
Batman trailer 2, and also as of today of our recording, the Homecoming discussion came out
Yes.
that he is a part of. So please check that out. Yeah. Any last words, Yanni?
No, just thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, man. Hey, enjoy the film. All right.
Yeah.
Almost there. Almost there. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great one. Stay safe. And goodbye.